The beast that built the world and never got a statue, before there were empires, before there were kings who claimed the sun as their father or generals who wept over fallen friends in wine-stained tents, there was mud, thick, wet, stubborn mud. And in that mud, trudging with patient, earth-shaking steps, was the ox. Not the horse flashy, romantic, born for war and poetry. Not the dog eager, tail-wagging, desperate for approval. And certainly not the cat aloof, divine, and utterly unbothered by human collapse. No, the ox was something else entirely. It was the quiet engine of survival. The animal that said nothing, asked for nothing, and carried the weight of civilization on its broad, sweat-slicked shoulders. It began, as so many human revolutions do, not with a battle cry, but with exhaustion. Around 8,000 years ago, somewhere in the Fertile Crescent, yes, that same overachieving neighborhood that gave us wheat, taxes, and existential dread, a farmer looked at his blistered hands, his aching back, and the endless field of dry earth before him. He thought, there has to be a better way to ruin my spine. And then he looked at the aurochs, massive, horned, and famously bad-tempered. The aurochs was the wild ancestor of all cattle-less livestock, more land shark. It didn't graze so much as it occupied. But it had one quality humans couldn't ignore: strength. Not the explosive power of a predator, but the deep, grinding, relentless force of a mountain wearing down a river. No one tamed the first ox. That implies consent. What happened was more like a slow-motion hostage situation with hay. Early humans didn't break the aurochs, they outweighted it. Generation after generation, they culled the most aggressive, bred the slightly less murderous, and fed the ones that didn't gore them on sight. It wasn't domestication, it was attrition with snacks. And so, over centuries, the aurochs shrank. Its horns curled inward like it was trying to disappear, its eyes soft not from affection, but from resignation. The beast that once charged lions now stood patiently while a child tied a rope around its neck and whispered, "Please pull the plow, Mr. Moo," and pull it did. The ox didn't gallop into history like Alexander's companions. It plodded, one hoof, then the other, day after day, season after season. While cats lounged in Egyptian temples and Mongol horses raced across empires, the ox turned soil. Not for glory, not for gold, but because it had been yoked, and to stop would mean the whip. Yet in that yoke, something miraculous happened. The plow, dragged by oxen, didn't just till the earth, it rewrote human destiny. For the first time, humans could farm more than they could carry. Surplus grain meant villages. Villages meant priests, scribes, soldiers. Surplus meant leisure, the dangerous luxury that gave us philosophy, poetry, and eventually, people who wrote essays about oxen while drinking coffee grown by other people's labor. The ox made all of it possible, and asked for nothing in return but straw, water, and the occasional scratch behind the ear. Unlike the horse celebrated in epic verse and buried with warriors, the ox was rarely mourned. When it died, its hide became sandals, its bones became tools, its meat fed the family that had worked it to the bone. There were no songs for the ox, no libations poured in its honor, no blue silk ribbons tied to its horns by shamans. It was simply used, and when it was gone, another took its place in the yoke. But make no mistake, the ox was not a victim. It was a partner in the most brutal kind of pact, one where one side gives everything and the other side pretends it has gratitude. In ancient Mesopotamia, oxen pulled the first wheeled carts, carrying bricks to build ziggurats that scraped the sky. In China, they hauled water from deep wells, turning deserts into rice paddies. In medieval Europe, they dragged harrows across frozen fields while peasants whispered prayers to saints who rode horses, not beasts of burden. The ox never rebelled. It didn't need to. Its power was in its silence. While kings rose and fell, while plagues swept continents and cats judged it all from windowsills, the ox kept walking. Forward. Always forward. Even its biology was designed for endurance, not escape. Broad hooves for soft earth. A stomach that could ferment the inedible into the edible. Eyes set wide on its skull, not to spot predators, but to see the furrow it was carving into the world. And in that furrow, civilization grew. You won't find an ox on a coin. You won't see it in a fresco beside a pharaoh or a general. But look closely at any ancient relief of harvest, of trade, of temple construction, and there it is. In the background, head down, pulling. The Greeks, ever obsessed with beauty and heroism, barely noticed it. Aristotle wrote volumes on animals, but the ox? Merely useful. The Romans called it bois, a word so plain it sounds like a sigh. Even in India, where the cow would one day be sacred, the ox remained the working class of divinity revered in theory, exhausted in practice. And yet, without the ox, none of it stands. No pyramids, no aqueducts, no Silk Road caravans laden with spice and silk. The horse carried the message. The camel crossed the desert, but the ox built the road. It is the ultimate irony of history. The creature that enabled leisure, art, and empire was denied all three. While Alexander's companions drank wine and debated fate, the ox that pulled the supply wagons slept in the mud outside the camp, dreaming, if it dreamed at all, of clover and stillness. Even its death was utilitarian. When an ox grew too old to pull, it wasn't retired to pasture. It was eaten. Its final gift, protein for the children of the man who owned it. And still it came back, generation after generation, not because it loved humans. Oxen feel no such thing, but because humans had made the wild world uninhabitable for its ancestors. The aurochs went extinct by 1627, the last one dying alone in a Polish forest, its kind erased by the very civilization its descendants had built. The domestic ox, meanwhile, thrived not through charm like the cat or speed like the horse, but through sheer, uncomplaining utility. It became the most numerous large mammal on Earth, not by choice, but by design. Today, in much of the world, the ox has been replaced. Tractors roar where hooves once thudded. Steel plows slice earth without sweat or breath, and we call it progress. But in the highlands of Ethiopia, in the rice fields of Bali, in the remote villages of Nepal, the ox still walks, still pulls, still lowers its head and moves the world, one slow step at a time. No one films it. No one writes odes. But if you stand in a field at dawn and watch an ox pull a wooden plow through wet earth, you'll see something ancient and holy, the original covenant between human and beast. Not one of love, not one of worship, but of necessity. And in that necessity, a kind of grace. The cat domesticated humanity through indifference. The horse conquered the world through partnership. The companions forged empires through brotherhood. But the ox? The ox simply showed up and carried us all. It never asked for a throne. It never needed one. The earth itself was its kingdom, and every furrow its legacy.